Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fogcast, episode 5. This week's episode, we'll be talking about crossplay and what it could bring in the future. My name is Thomas.
My name is Jonathan.
And welcome to the Fog. First of all, let's get into this week's shrine. For the killer, this week we have Lightborn and Pop Goes the Weasel. Lightborn grants you immunity to flashlights as of the recent update, and Pop Goes the Weasel lets you obliterate a generator after you hook a survivor within a certain amount of time. And it can go up to 25% regression on the generator. And for the survivors, we have Alert and Autodidact. So the killers have way better perks this week on the shrine, but if I was going to go for one of the two, I would pick Pop Goes the Weasel just because it's so effective in getting regression done on the generators. And for the survivors, I would have to go with Autodidact because once you get that going, you have to get a certain amount of skill checks, and the first skill check regresses the healing speed, but then eventually it goes really fast if you get skill checks. So that can be really useful during the end game when everything is chaotic. Now, getting into the episode, crossplay is going to be, I think, a worthy introduction into the Dead by Daylight franchise. It has worked with lots of other games like Call of Duty, and it'll be much easier to get into a game faster because there will be a wider available player base to choose from to fill up the lobbies.
So things that other companies have done with crossplay, like Fortnite, like Call of Duty, is that you can enable crossplay, and that is even if you are on one console with your friends maybe, or you're just going in by yourself, you can choose to get into a game with only people on your console, or you can do crossplay. And I think that's a good way to go about it. I don't think it should be forced upon the players to have a chance to run into a huntress on PC.
Right. Then that leads us into the problem that might be caused by crossplay. If there are PC players crossing with console players, the PC players are just going to dominate pretty much. There's a reason why certain killers are better on console versus on PC, and it's because some of the killers need the ability to aim something, such as the Huntress or the Nurse or the Hillbilly. They all require precise aim, and on the console it's not as easy to do when you don't have a mouse and keyboard. So that's why it's going to be important it's essential for there to be a button to disable crossplay.
So in Call of Duty, what they have is, especially like the new Modern Warfare Remastered, is you can actually have mouse and keyboard enabled on console. So that's a whole nother thing where you have to go through settings, and if you do choose to plug in mouse and keyboard on console, it automatically cues you into cross-platform lobbies. And that's fine because you do have that extra aim, that extra movement.
I mean, if you're using a mouse and keyboard, you're pretty much always going to be better than somebody with a controller, depending on what game it is. In Rocket League, they also have crossplay, but most people use a controller. But even in that game, you can enable or disable crossplay. With something like Dead by Daylight, where it requires aim, or something like Call of Duty, like a first-person shooter, where it requires precise aim and quick reactions, it's going to be way easier for a person with a mouse and keyboard. And this is where the worry comes in about it.
So what I think about it is I think it'll be cool, because if you are forced as a console player to get into PC lobbies, I think it'll bring a new meta. A lot of things will change because the console people are going to have to work around the difficulty of the PC players, because obviously there's a significantly higher skill cap on PC than there is on console. And so I think console players are going to have to figure out a way, and I know it'll happen because it does happen a lot, Like there are a lot of extremely good Fortnite players who compete with people who are on top level that use mouse and keyboard and they use controller. It happens. So there's going to be a new meta that's going to come and counter any sort of PC game.
It's going to be quite a change when crossplay fully gets implemented into the game. It's going to be really cool to be able to play with people on other consoles and on PC. No matter where you play Dead by Daylight, you'll be able to play with your friends or with anybody around the world, and that'll be really cool. But we'll have to see how it works out. Dead by Daylight, the developers, I'm sure they're gonna try their best to make it as fair as possible. Just like they're trying to update the server latency currently. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, crossplay will be a really beneficial addition to Dead by Daylight, but only time will tell, and I guess we'll see what happens when it finally gets here.
Overall, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll bring a new meta, which is always a cool thing to see. Things are going to change. You're going to find new uses for different perks, and I think that's really cool.
Also, one last thing. I know that they're trying to introduce a MMR system where your skill will be a number instead of like a rank. So there could be lower MMR PC players that will be matched with the same MMR console players, but we'll have to see how all of this comes together and how all of it works out. And we're looking forward to the graphics update that we don't know when it's coming, but they announced it at the 4th anniversary stream. They announced a lot of cool stuff at the 4th anniversary stream, and I can't wait for it all to be implemented into the game to see how it all comes together. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Fogcast. Stay safe out there in the fog, and thanks for listening.